They said my pool wasn't mine. Yes, you heard that right. The HOA actually tried to claim that the swimming pool in my own backyard didn't belong to me. At first, I thought it was a joke. How could anyone say something so crazy? But the letters started arriving, the warnings piled up, and the threats became louder. That's when I knew this wasn't a mistake. This was a battle. I want you to imagine this for a second. You save up money, you dream of a home where your family can laugh, play, and enjoy life. You finally get it, a house with a backyard and a pool. It feels like freedom. It feels like success. But then, the HOA steps in, acting like they own your dream. That's what happened to me. And let me tell you, I was not going to let them win. The first letter they sent was short but sharp. It said the pool was community property, and I had no right to keep it private. My jaw dropped when I read that line. Community property. This was my yard, my pool, my land. How could they say otherwise? It felt like someone breaking into my home and telling me my couch was theirs. At first, I tried to reason with them. I called their office and spoke politely. I explained that the pool was on my deed, inside my property lines, and paid for with my own hard-earned money. You know what they said? We'll review it. Review what? Facts don't need a review. But that was their game. Drag things out, confuse the homeowner, and hope we give up. I didn't give up. Instead, I started documenting everything. Every call. Every letter. Every ridiculous claim they made. And trust me, there were plenty. They said the fence around my pool was not aesthetically approved. They said the water level was a safety concern. At one point, they even said the noise from my kids splashing in the pool was disturbing the community atmosphere. Can you believe that? Kids laughing is disturbing? Here's the thing. HOAs thrive on intimidation. They send letters with bold stamps and scary words. They hope fear will make you pay fines or follow orders without a fight. But I decided to flip the script. Instead of fear, I chose focus. I dug into their own bylaws, their contracts, their debts. And what I found shocked me. The HOA was broke. That's right. Behind all their noise and threats, they were drowning in debt. They had taken out a huge bank loan to cover repairs, landscaping, and their own office costs. And they weren't paying it back on time. I remember the moment I saw the documents. My anger turned into a smile. Because suddenly, I realized the power wasn't theirs anymore. It could be mine. But before I tell you how I bought their debt and turned the tables, let me take you deeper into the storm I was facing. Because the HOA didn't just stop at letters. They tried everything. One morning, I woke up to find a notice taped to my door. It claimed I was violating community guidelines and owed $1,500 in fines. For what? For refusing to share my pool. I laughed at first, but then I felt my blood boil. They were trying to turn lies into money. They wanted me to pay for something that wasn't even real. When I refused, the threats escalated. They sent legal letters hinting at liens on my property. They warned me that if I didn't comply, they could restrict my access to community facilities. Can you imagine? Restricting my access when they were trying to steal my own property. The hypocrisy was unbelievable. I knew most homeowners would panic at this stage. Some would pay just to make the problem go away. But not me. I had a plan. I was tired of playing defense. It was time to attack. So, I started digging deeper into the HOA's financial history. Late fees. Missed payments. Overpriced contracts. It was all there. And then I found the crown jewel, their loan agreement with the bank. A loan so massive, it made their whole empire shaky. That's when the light bulb went off. If I bought their debt, I wouldn't just be fighting the HOA anymore. I would own them. But let me back up for a moment. Because I want you to feel the emotions I went through. I wasn't just angry. I was hurt. This was my dream home, and instead of peace, I was dealing with harassment. Every letter felt like a punch. Every threat felt like a storm cloud over my family. I remember sitting by the pool one night, looking at the water, and thinking, why are they doing this? Why can't they just let me live? That's when the anger turned into determination. If they wanted a war, I was going to give them one. Not by shouting. Not by breaking rules. But by outsmarting them with their own system. I hired a lawyer, but not just any lawyer. Someone who knew HOA law inside and out. Someone who had fought these bullies before. And together we built a strategy. Step 1. Protect my property. Step 2. Expose their lies. Step 3. Flip the power. The next HOA meeting was unforgettable. I walked in with my lawyer and a folder full of documents. They expected me to show up scared, maybe begging. Instead, I showed up calm and confident. When they tried to lecture me about community rules, I interrupted with one sentence. Do you want to talk about your unpaid loan balance? The room went silent. Their faces turned pale. They knew I had found their weak spot. Suddenly, I wasn't just a homeowner they could push around. I was a threat to their entire operation. And believe me, that felt good. From that moment, the balance of power shifted. But the fight was far from over. In fact, it was about to reach a whole new level. Because buying their debt wasn't simple. It required guts, strategy, and a willingness to risk it all. And that's exactly what I was ready to do. If you've ever been bullied by an HOA, or felt powerless against unfair rules, then stick with me. Because in the next part of this story, I'll show you exactly how I turned their debt into my weapon, how I bought the loan that controlled their future, and how I made them answer to me instead of the other way around. Follow along, because trust me, this is just getting started. The night after that HOA meeting, I sat at my dining table with all the documents spread out in front of me. The numbers, the contracts, the deadlines, everything was there. My lawyer looked at me and said, if you really want to do this, you'll need to step into their world. You'll need to think like a banker, not just a homeowner. It sounded crazy at first. Me, a regular homeowner, going toe-to-toe with an entire HOA board and their bank? But then I thought back to all the sleepless nights, the stress my family went through, and the constant harassment. And I said to myself, if this is what it takes to win, then I'll do it. So, I started learning. I read about loan transfers, about how banks sell debts to third parties when HOAs fail to pay. I discovered that money talks louder than any HOA letter. And the more I studied, the more confident I became. This wasn't impossible. It was just a game they never expected me to play. Here's the twist most people don't know. When an HOA is drowning in debt, the bank doesn't want the headache. They just want their money back. That means if you step up with cash, you can buy the loan, and when you buy the loan, you become the one in charge. Imagine that. The HOA that once threatened to put a lien on my house would now have to answer to me. The first call to the bank was nerve-wracking. I introduced myself, explained I was a homeowner in the community, and asked about the loan. The voice on the other side paused, then asked me to hold. My heart raced. After a few minutes, a manager came on the line. He asked why I was interested. I told him the truth, because I know they're failing, and I'm willing to take the risk. He didn't say yes right away, of course. Banks don't just hand over contracts like candy. But he didn't shut the door either. That was enough for me. It meant there was a chance. And if there's one thing I've learned in life, it's this. When you see a crack in the wall, you push until it breaks. While the bank reviewed my offer, the HOA kept trying to tighten the noose. More letters. More threats. More fines. But this time, their words didn't scare me. Because I knew something they didn't. Their future was already slipping out of their hands. And then, it happened. I got the call. The bank was willing to sell the loan. The amount was high. Higher than I'd ever spent on anything besides my house. But I thought about the long-term picture. If I pulled this off, I wouldn't just protect my pool. I would protect my home, my family, and every neighbor tired of their bullying. I signed the paperwork. I wired the funds. And just like that, the power flipped. I became the owner of the HOA's debt. The first board meeting after the deal was something I'll never forget. They sat around the table, smug as always, ready to scold me again. But this time, I didn't sit quietly. I stood up, slid a folder across the table, and said, "You don't work for the bank anymore. You work for me." The looks on their faces were priceless. Shock, anger, confusion. They didn't know what to say. 4 years, they had used fear as their weapon. Now, I had turned their weapon into mine. And here's the best part. Once I owned the debt, I controlled the rules of repayment. I could have crushed them. I could have forced them into bankruptcy. But instead, I chose something better. I used the leverage to clean house. The corrupt board members resigned. The power-hungry president stepped down. And we brought in new leadership that actually cared about the community. For the first time in years, the HOA worked for the people, not against them. Neighbors who once whispered their complaints finally spoke up. We ended unfair fines. We opened the books so everyone could see where the money was going. And yes, my pool remained mine. Untouchable. Looking back, I realized something powerful. The HOA thought they were untouchable because they had rules, lawyers, and threats. But at the end of the day, they were just another organization with weaknesses. And when you find the weakness, you win. But let me be honest with you. It wasn't easy. It took guts. It took sleepless nights. It took putting everything on the line. And that's why I share this story, because I know there are homeowners out there right now who feel trapped, bullied, and powerless. I want you to know, you're not powerless. You have options. You have rights. And sometimes, with the right strategy, you can turn the tables completely. I remember sitting by the pool after everything was done. The water was calm, the night was quiet, and for the first time in months, I felt peace. My kids laughed again, without me worrying about another letter in the mailbox. My wife smiled, knowing the storm was finally over. And me? I felt something even greater. I felt proud. Proud that I didn't let them win. Proud that I stood my ground. Proud that I fought back not just for me, but for everyone who believed homeowners should live free. So, here's my message to you. If you're facing an unfair HOA, don't just roll over. Don't let them steal your peace. Stand up. Learn the system. Use their rules against them. Because bullies only win when we stay silent. And if you've ever dreamed of flipping the script on those who try to control you, let this story be proof. It can be done. Now, I want to hear from you. Would you fight back if an HOA tried to take what was yours? Or would you let them win? Drop your answer, share this story with someone who needs hope, and remember, power belongs to those who refuse to give it away.